Hey everybody, Mr. O here. I'm going to give you a little support on calculating compound interest. And I have 3 examples for us today. The first one's written in green. It's if we start with $1,000 at 6% interest and we get 6% interest for 3 years, how much money do we have after 3 years? So we'll need to do some calculation for that. The second one's written in purple. This one is $500 at 18%. And is calculating for 4 years. How much will we have after 4 years? And the third one is we start with $1,500. We get 12% interest each year for 2 years. How much do we have at the end of each year? Excuse me, how much do we have at the end of 2 years? That's kind of what we're dealing with. So we first have to answer or understand the question. This is our start. This is how much we're going to get. And this is how many years we need to calculate it for. And so let's go ahead and start this up. So if I start with $1,000 and I'm getting 6% and I have to figure it out for 3 years, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my calculator, because I'm not judging you or grading you on whether or not you can do the math. I'm grading you on whether or not you understand the process. And so I simply will type in 1,000 into my calculator. I will hit the times sign or the multiply sign, and I will do 0.06 because that number represents 6%. And when I do that, 60 should come out. If you did it right and you calculated it correct, 60 would come out. So this is what we ended up with interest in the first year, year 1. Now, we're almost done, but not quite, because remember, we have to add that 60 to our original 1,000. So at the end of year 1, we are going to end year 1 with $1,060. Not hard, okay? If you can do that first step, you can do all of the steps. I think sometimes when we have trouble with compound interest, we make it more complicated. All the steps are exactly like that. We just are using different numbers. So again, we just started with $1,000, so that's what we put into our calculator first, 1,000. We hit the multiply sign on our calculator, and we multiplied 1,000 times 0.06, and that's how we got $60. And that's at the end of year 1. Now, remember, we have to do this for 3 years, so we're just going to go through year 2 now. So I also got this for 6% the second year, so I'm going to go into my calculator, 1,060, hit the multiply sign, 0.06, and if I do it correctly, I'm going to end up with 6360. Now again, I have to add what I received in interest to what I started with, and so I'll simply go plus 6360, and if I did my math correct, then after year 2, I'm going to end up with $1,123.60 after year 2. Okay, so we're getting close to being done here. We have this much at the end of year 2, and remember it said at the very beginning up here that we needed to do this for 3 years. So we have 1 more year to do. We know how to do this, so it's not hard. We also are getting 6% this year, so we put in our calculator 1123.60, because that's how much I have, times or multiply again 0.06. And then if I do this right, I end up with this number, 67416. Now, you guys are old enough to know that we don't calculate the dollars and money with this many numbers on this side. So we're going to round this up. Since this is a 6, we're going to round this to a 2. So this turns into $67.42. It's not complicated. We need 2 digits here, and we have 3, so we just round this one up. Since it's a 6, it's bigger than 5, that becomes a 2. So all we do is add plus 6742 to what we started with, which is this number right here. And when I do that, I end up with $1,191.02. That's after year 3, and since that's what I was asked to calculate was 3 years, then this becomes my answer. And all I have to do is put a $ sign on that and put that down for my answer for the first one. It's not hard, it's not complicated. You just have to keep yourself from getting confused, and you have to just keep building year after year. So let's do another one. Our second example is $500 is what we're going to start with. And we're going to get a little bit more interest on this one, 18%, and we're going to go for a little bit longer. We're going to do 4 years. And so just like the other example, I start by typing in 500 into my calculator. I hit the multiply. This is 18%, so that's 0.18. And then I just hit the equal sign. And if I did this correctly, I'm going to end up with $90. And so I need to add $90. And so at the end of year number one, we have $590. Same thing, basic, simple math. We're not done because we've got to do this for 4 years. And so let's do year number 2. Again, 590 into our calculator times 0.18. And if we do our math correctly on this one, we're going to end up with 106.20 or $106.20. So we just come over here, add it to what we started with. And if your math is correct, at the end of year 2, you're going to end up with $696.20. We need to mark this year 2 so that we can keep in our mind that we are done with year 2. Remember, we're going to year 4, so we need 2 more years on this one. Same steps though. Type in my calculator, 696.20, and I'm going to multiply it by 0.18 because it's already told me I'm getting 18% interest. And for year 3, our answer was 125,316. So again, we have 3 digits here. We only need 2. We'll add this one or round it up. This becomes a 2, so we end up with 125,32. That's what you should have if you did your math right. So I come over here and add 125,32 to my original or starting number. And if I do my math correctly, I'll end up with 821.52. All right, I've done 3 years now. And remember, I'm doing 4, so I'm almost finished. So I start with 821.52 into my calculator, multiply that by 0.18 because I'm getting 18%, and I end up this time with 147.36. Excuse me, I ended up with something just a little bit different. So let's fix that. We're going to end up with, and this might happen to you, and make sure you don't get confused. Make sure you erase or whatever you need to do. We're going to end up with 147.8736. Well, we've got 4 digits now. We need 2, and these are the 2 that we're going to need. And if I look here, this is 3, so it's less than 5, so I'm going to keep this. I'm going to do 147.87 because I'm not going to round up because this is less than 5 right there. All right, so I come over here, add 147.87 to what I started with, and I end up at the end of this with 969.39. And I add a $sign to tell the teacher that I know I'm talking about dollars. I know that this is at the end of year 4. The original question asked me for 4 years, so that's what I end up with, $969.39. Now, one thing you can kind of do to check your work is just to make sure that your numbers are consistently getting bigger. And here's what I mean. This first year, we ended up with $106.20. And because I know I'm getting the same percentage every year, each year should be getting a little bit bigger. So I check this. Is this bigger than the first year? Yes, it is. Is this third year bigger than the second year? Yes, it is. Is this fourth year? I think I got ahead of myself. Is each year getting bigger? And the answer is yes if you look at your math. And so you can kind of check that. Sometimes I notice that students could catch an error just by looking to see if it makes sense, if each number is getting bigger. So we've got one more to go. We've got $1,500 we're going to start with. We're getting 12% interest, and we only need to do this for 2 years, so this should be pretty quick. And so if I do 1,500 into my calculator, hit the multiply, 0.12, what I end up with is $180. So I add my $180 over here, and I have $1,680 total at the end of year one. Halfway done already. So for the second year, I put in 1680 into my calculator times 0.12. And for this one, I end up with 201.6. And remember, I need 2 digits over here. And this can just be filled in as a 0. So we'd have $201.60. So I add over here 201.60. And if I add that together, I end up with $1,881.60. Put my dollar sign. This is year 2. I knew that I needed to calculate only for 2 years, and so I can simply take this number, put it down as my answer. Again, basic math, not tough. I think the biggest challenge is to keep yourself organized, to keep yourself in a way that you understand what your numbers mean, and probably work out your answers on a spare sheet of paper. That's the easiest thing to do. That's what I did for this video, is I worked all these out on a sheet of paper to make sure that it all made sense and it was flowing, and you should do the same. So hopefully this made some sense to you. If it didn't, please ask for some help. I'm available before school, I'm available after school, and I can be glad to help you out. Good luck. You will see something soon on compound interest.